Okay, the card for the turn is another Machiavelli card, Pragmatic Sanction of Mainz. This is going to allow the holder to deny the Papal States from receiving tax from the church lands, which are these sort of extra territorial areas. That's a potentially powerful little operation that you can put into play. But if any of these become valuable after 1466, someone can intervene in them fairly easily. Right now, they're part of the huge tax base the papacy has of 10 gold a turn. The empire has a larger one. They might be desirable to grab at this point or to disallow. But later in the game, they're going to become pretty unimportant, I would guess. Now, the other factor that it can be used to nullify an excommunication or a crusade. But it also gives you a modifier to who goes first, and we've already set up that order. It's not really clearly stated in the game when you make that decision. It could be at every movement phase. It could be at the beginning of a year. It could be at the... It's just not made clear, so I do it at the beginning of the year. This first player move determination. It's simply, well, actually I think it's done at every move phase. But I've been setting it at the beginning of the year. Not that it makes much difference. I may randomize it each time. It's just a pain in the ass to do that one, especially when not a lot's happening. But anyway, the Brits decided, well, the Portuguese Brits decided to pick it up for 2 gold. Other people bid 1. They were the only ones who went up to 2. And that's going to push us to spring, build, and refurbish army ships and caravans. Now, at this point, people actually have a reason to do things. And this is, play order here is not specified at all. I guess maybe you could take an action and somebody else can take an action and whatever, kind of a la Pax Britannica, until everybody kind of says, well, we're good. Which probably makes the most sense. Some people are going to want to buy things, though. And the cost here is 5 per army or galley, or 4 for a caravan, 8 for round ships. And you can use imperial money, and you can do refurbishment as well. That's as per 5.4. That's going to be 1 gold to refurbish things. Now, very clearly, the papacy is going to refurbish their damaged galley here. That seems like a good move. The Ottomans have to get an army. Otherwise, they'll lose Constantinople. So that's 5 gold for an army, which we're going to put under the Sultan to keep him from being killed. That may not be enough. I may want to build more, but that's a definite. And I'll look around and try to decide who wants to buy what. So, if nobody else is building troops, you don't really have to. But if somebody near you builds troops, then you may need to, and you may want to keep cash in reserve to do so. So, for example, the Habsburgs would really like to get 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 more caravans. That'll cost them $16 though. And right now they only have $9. So they can't make it the whole way with what they have. And that begins to create issues in terms of, well, okay, if I can't do that, what can I do that's of value? Can I perhaps get by with just 2 more? That would involve putting a caravan here in Ottoman territory, but it would perhaps create money for the Ottomans that they're not going to get otherwise. It also creates money running through the chain that we're looking at here. I don't see an easy way through the Alps that's going to create no money, right? I guess I could put a caravan here. So let's see. If I got out of Venice, I could move a caravan here. I would need 3 caravans. That would be $12. That's leaving me with no money for armies. Actually, no, that's beyond my capacity. So right now I could only do it by caravan with 2 more caravans. That would be $8. That leaves me with no money for armies. That would be painful as well, right? They're $4 each, I think. Yeah, only $4 each. So I may not want to build the caravans yet and count on, well, maybe I can get a deal with the papacy if they can get a connection through. A connection through is going to be impossible now, though, without Ottoman consent, which starts to make life difficult, right? Because now it requires a bribe to the Ottomans to cut through the Dardanelles for any of these by sea trade routes, and the land trade route hasn't been built yet. The Ottomans probably don't have enough cash to build a bunch of caravans cutting down here. If they did, and made it through here as well, they would be able to be the sole supplier and kind of demand their $1 in taxes. Most people are not going to give more than $1 for their bank. They want to make $2 off their bank. Now, if you have to give $1 to 2 different people, that becomes more likely to happen. We saw it almost happen last turn. The reason it didn't is everybody had to pay $2 to get their bank hooked up. Well, it's going to be tough, though, in this game not to have to pay somebody something to get money through. Now, for example, the English and Spaniards maybe could be the transporters of all that wealth, of all those bank connections, with an agreement between them to each pay a gold to the Ottomans. That'll probably, or to the person controlling the Ottomans, who is our Byzantine Basilius. That is an acceptable way to do things. It makes sense because they'll be paying a gold each to make their transit, and other people then can pay them. But again, how much? You know, maybe they can come to an agreement where it's only costing other people $1 each to make that transit. They've already covered their payment to the Ottomans. Again, there's a lot of room for negotiation as to how these trade routes end up happening. I'm going to keep thinking and working on the spring builds. I'll try to come back with some explanation if anything exciting happens there. In addition to the army, the Ottomans built a galley there. The papacy and the Spaniards both built ships. The Spaniards built 1 galley. They feel like they need more power to try to force the Dardanelles and maybe become a master in the Black Sea as well. And the papacy built 2 ships. They want to cut the English out of this deal if they can. But again, Constantinople's vital here. The Ottomans only have 2 units there, and other people have more than that. So we could well see Turkey sacked in this game pretty quickly. They just haven't had the kind of cash flow that some of the other empires did. So that's where we're sitting there. And also non-player controlled... Oh, the Muscovites also built themselves an army. Now that is up to the player's choice, but he wants to defend himself against some kind of attempt to invade his territory there, which could also happen. He doesn't have the strength that some of the other characters do. Now the non-players would go, if anybody had a big pile of cash, they would be converted over. Nobody does. Except for the Empire. Let's see, 5.4. What's he going to build? It'll convert 5 into an army or navy. So we're going to be buying a French army there. Now, there's a huge pile of French caravans. They have the most in the way of caravans. They could be very helpful to someone, but nobody's got control of that. That could, run this Milanese power without having to worry about anything about France there. Maybe a better move than having gone with the Habsburgs to begin with, but that's what we get. And then we'll be moving to the spring naval move conflict. I will randomize again within that so that I don't know. So blue and red could switch. Red wins out this time. And then the others I'll be cupping and seeing what they do. Here's where the world gets kind of interesting. Now that attacks are allowed, red has the first move. Now they've got round ships spread all over Helen creation and no real way to enforce their own defense. And they start talking about, oh, hey, we still got a deal, man. And there's absolutely no point for them to not cluster their ships together somewhere. If they don't, they're going to get them shot up, essentially. So I'm going to pull the entirety of the English fleet into the Aegean here, because I've got one of the most powerful fleets around, but essentially I'm taking my move first. Now, do I have other stuff that I might move? No, I actually don't. That's all I have. Otherwise, this becomes more complicated. I'd have to rotate counters or something like that to indicate, the Brits moved these pieces. But yeah. And they're going to have to think kind of hard, because if they do, so if they get to move last over here in the summer, then they can spread out and not launch attacks. However, what's not clear is whether or not the person who's currently present in an area can attack if you move into it. That's not really an issue out at sea. In fact, the English are safe out at sea because they have round ships, I believe. Seeing if there's naval combat covered here. So this actually only handles all land and sea counters can attack once, even if they haven't moved. I think those navies are actually just safe out here. So I didn't have to conglomerate like that. But I want to do it. Because, well, let's see. Each army and navy can attack once per round. Just trying to see. Forces in port can be attacked by forces at sea or forces at land. These are separate attacks. Armies may attack navies in port. I think probably navies can, galleys can sortie out of their port, which is where they have to be in order to attack. So, yeah, it does look like there's a danger. But it's not clearly stated in the rules properly here. Let's see, wait. They must all be in the same port or all at sea. This means galleys can't attack round ships at sea. Okay, so that is intended to be that way. Okay, so yeah, the English were safe. For whatever that means. For the most part, being at sea is not terribly useful, but for round ships it does kind of work. Now, they can't pass through here until this is broken. So my English aren't quite ready to make that decision. Other people may be, though. Now, as we go down the line, well, who's our French? Our French are, I believe, these guys, who have nothing. They're not really French. They do have control of any Spanish oh, geez, they built a Spanish navy for them. Well, we'll say they came to some sort of agreement because they control any Spanish caravans, but they don't control the navies. But they actually control the purse. And building that fleet, we might see some sort of cooperation there. I don't know. This isn't working very well for them. Not being in control of your own empire is just a bad idea, and splitting an empire is just bad if you can avoid it. So as we go down the line, well, the papacy gets to go next. Now the papacy could worry about the possibility of Turkish galleys, a Turkish galley coming out and attacking, and in fact a Turkish army coming out and attacking, but that would open up Constantinople. And if Constantinople falls, the empire actually falls. So that doesn't seem worthwhile. It does seem worthwhile to try to conquer the empire. Why not? Well, maybe I want to let the Spanish have the first shot at it. Maybe I want to do it myself. This is covered somewhere. Yeah, I don't remember where the conquest rules are. I found them before, but now, there we go. An invading army captures a capital. It can loot half the treasury, which goes to the leader of the invading army. Well, we don't have a leading army, but the empire could get it. The vanquished empire's sea card is confiscated by the victorious empire. The victorious empire, and this will give them the caravans and control over any taxation. The victorious empire can lead armies of the vanquished color with its own leaders when and if the vanquished emperor is killed or captured by anyone. At this point, the two empires will be combined into one. You can walk into other duchies. So that's a pretty potent ability to be the conqueror, and I think the Spaniards are just going to go for that and try to take the Ottomans out. And this is simply a matter of the Ottomans didn't have enough taxation to defend themselves. So now we've got this big battle where we're going to have 8 dice against 2. However, the Ottomans have a leader present. So let's look. Yeah. So we're going to be attacking with only a 1 multiplier. So if we don't wipe them out, we may be in trouble. Let me get some dice and we'll roll this. I don't know what happened. I lost recording at some point or something. My camera's acting kind of queer here. I'll be back after I listen to the end of the last tape. Okay. Well, apparently I didn't hit the record button or something. But what we've got right now is the papacy launched an unsuccessful, not the Spaniards, I keep talking about the Spaniards and papals, getting confused here, but the papacy launched an unsuccessful attack and were beaten back. The Spaniards launched a secondary attack, managed to wipe out the entirety of the Ottomans, and killed the emperor. He's gone. And now they've moved their cards over here. As far as I can tell, Spain and the Ottomans are one empire. They've been joined now. Yeah, that was pretty easy, right? Yeah. It is one of the difficulties with the game is that it is possible to just knock out a complete empire. I don't think the heir to the Ottoman Turks has any effect on play anymore. And so, let's see, our Byzantine Basilius has nothing he's aligned with. Now, he can, unlike everyone else, he could take over the French at this point. And we could maybe see something else happen. I don't know what happens if the French captures, say, the Spanish capital. I think he gets the combined empire under his control then, which would be tremendously powerful. There's no easy way to take this back from Spain except by taking Spain out. Now, Spain isn't terribly powerful either. Let's look at what we have left. We have the black player who is the Byzantine Vasilius. He doesn't have Turks anymore. The Turks are actually under control of Spain at this point. He doesn't have anything he can really move. In fact, this caravan is controlled by the Spaniards now, just to make things really difficult, right? But I think he's controlled by the Sultan with his chancellery power over the Spaniards. Meanwhile, we have the Habsburgs who really have nothing they want to do. So I think we're done with the movement phase, and it was pretty damn dramatic. You don't usually see something like that. But some of the powers start out with significantly more forces. And the poor Ottomans just do not start out with an army, so they're fairly easily vulnerable. But other people are too. The Spaniards only have one galley here. Someone could go in there and crush them pretty easily. Usually, I don't see that, I think, because I'm still kind of working the trade routes and everything. But in this case, it was pretty obvious that this was a worthwhile goal. Anyway. We're going to be moving on to the summer card. Let's see what comes up here. Wallachia, which is going to be a lord over here. That could be very valuable given that that's the quick route east for the Ottomans, for the Habsburgs. I think a lot of people are vaguely interested in that. Some people may also be interested in the Genoese ships. An extra round ship. Round ships aren't as good as galleys for combat, but, well, any little bit helps. You can also purchase some of these other ships at their starting locations if you can figure out where they are. Some of them are fairly easy, like, say, the Sinope, or the Genoa fleet, which comes in there. But some of the others, it's not clear where they start unless you have the card in your hand. And if the card comes up for bidding, it'll take that navy away from you. You're allowed to buy the navy for $5. I think actually buy it in your own territory or something, in one of your own ports. Who knows? But it does cause some real problems if you can't find where they're supposed to be bought, which is really kind of the difficulty for me with them. Like I said, this game has definite rules issues. It's a little less, I think it got less play than Lords of the Sierra Madre. Also, Lords of the Sierra Madre got a second edition, which is what I have, which presumably maybe got improved a little bit, although when you look at some of the expanded stuff and changes that other games went through under Sierra Madre, it's hard to tell that they improved it all. And I'm thinking particularly here about High Frontier's latest expansion, which is making even less sense to me. All right, so who's interested in this? Well, I would say clearly the Habsburgs are, but is anyone else interested in picking up this character? I don't know yet. Probably not, because the Habsburgs have too much power in there. So I'm going to say that they're going to throw their quick bid in there. That is this guy. And they're going to pick him up. He's only a level 1 leader. I have to find him, which is hard to do through all here. So I'll dig him out. Fortunately enough, I can't find a counter for this bugger. See if there's anything that indicates anything here. I'm supposed to use the Slavs counter. That's the one I found. And it looks like stature 2 actually here, even though he has stature 1. Wonder what that's supposed to mean. I guess I'll use the stature 1 to modify with that, and he'll be here. Maybe multiple units use the Slavs counter. That would be very much in keeping with Lords of Sierra Madre, where sometimes there aren't enough Indian counters to cover everything that's in the game or something along those lines, if I recall correctly. Are there any green counters anyone's interested in at this point? Does anybody want those Genoese round ships? One thing you can do with them if you have them is you could arrest the Duke of Genoa or the Doge of Genoa for whatever that's worth. Very shortly, he will have enough money that he'll start building his own forces, which would cause problems with building that card. I think that getting an extra ship is worthwhile at this point. Remember, you don't have to pay maintenance on that ship, although maybe you have to pay maintenance for the mercenaries, right? No, I don't think so. All right. I'm going to have to look up to see if mercenaries have a cost. We'll be back. I screwed up on player order. I'm right about the M cards, but the second thing is ties go in the order that you chose order of play, so it's always going to be fixed. It's not going to be randomized. Hopefully I'll remember that. The English bought the Genoese round ships. There's another problem in the hand. The Reformation can be used to force a player to permanently disalign from an empire. I could push him out of control of Aragon. I don't really want to do that yet, for the simple fact that I'm a little worried that somebody's going to be able to conquer Aragon at this point. Which means that it might not be worthwhile. But that's a very powerful card if one empire gets very strong. You can throw it up for realignment, and people can purchase it at that point. So that's kind of troublesome. Now, we split Aragon, so that makes it kind of more valuable to us right now as a card. However, the threat of that card may allow me, along with some good behavior in terms of being the right chancellor and building the stuff that we need, to preserve our empire. I don't think there's any other cards anyone wants to buy. Like I said, people can fund a privateer for 5 gold, but that's expensive compared to bidding a card, which can go for, in this case it went for 2 to the English, I believe. No, only 1. The papacy was also involved in the bidding. So, we're done with our card, and we go to summer taxes, and we're still in the taxable era, so we're going to see a lot of money being thrown out on the board again. That money disappears eventually. It dries up in after 1466, or in 1466, I'm not sure which. But until then, everything is producing a good deal of cash. That cash usually isn't going into players' treasuries, though. They're getting a gold a turn from that. They need to get projects or some such to or fund their bank in order to get their cash flow coming. Huge hordes of cash going into the Spanish treasury, and that is serious cause for concern. The money's beginning to accumulate in one place. The papacy has a decent amount of cash too, but the point is that with the power that they've gained here over the Ottomans, now there's kind of a desire to take the Spaniards out to get half their cash into not a player's hands, but into another empire, just to kind of knock out that advantage that they have, because they're going to have a bigger military than anyone else. Now, of course, they are responsible for trying to defend this, and that can be stripped away pretty easily if an enemy was near there. There aren't many people with armies near there, though. Players pull their money. The Caliphate has grabbed a pile of cash. One thing to note with the bidding that was ignored, the Basilius did not go for any of the French bids. He could do that now because he's no longer aligned with black. He's still got the black heritage, but he doesn't have he doesn't have a card from them. So now he could align himself as the blue player, as it were, and take that territory. He chose not to do that for various reasons, mainly because the French are just not going to be able to help him much. He's too far away. However, this caravan here is not his to control, and I'll be heading down to do the Spanish player's bidding. Now, the Spanish player in this case is the Egyptians, and they have no real bank, but maybe a desire to try to get their goods, their wares, moved from out of Beirut, where they collect cash from, to somewhere else. In particular, the Comnenid, the exact purpose that they were there for before, wants these. So I think we're going to start seeing some Ottoman caravans. How much they're going to be harassed, that's hard to tell, because the Spaniards probably don't really want to invest too much effort in defending that. They really have to worry about their own capital at this point. Okay. Of course, purchase choices are up to the C card. So where are we? We're on the advancement of immature projects, and there are a few kicking around. We've got one here, the Nuremberg Foundry and Mill. Well, the Empire will pay that off to move it another space, and it is now a mature project, which essentially I can keep it up here. If I can find anything to hook it up to, it'll start making me cash. Right now it's doing nothing. And we have another immature project here, which I was unwise enough not to do anything about. So busy with those navies, I forgot all about it. I gotta pay $1 to keep it where it is. Hopefully, where is that? That's Florence? Yeah, that's in Florence itself. Hopefully I'll be able to get my troops there at some point. Florence doesn't have enough cash. I owe it $1. I have trouble keeping track of getting all the cash on all the miners that they're due. I gotta do something about that fairly soon, and I can't just sail into Florence. They don't have a naval capacity, so I may need to buy the Medici. Or else my territory is going to be in trouble there. And if I buy the Medici, no, I don't have to pay one. That's right. I'm not paying it. The Medici are paying it. I forgot how that works. Very easy to forget things if you're me. So that goes up to half mature, because that came in from a later card. All right, so we paid that off. And that's going to push us to the summer movement and conflict phase. And we may see Spain go this time. So the Portuguese English have the first move with the pragmatic sanction, and actually, I don't know if they have the first move. Yeah, they beat out the Sultan there in order. So they decide to take that rather than wait till the end, and they're sailing in to try to take Spain out this time. They got a whole pile of fleets, ignoring their trade obligations. Now this is a weird situation, because what they're doing, if they're ignoring trade, they're ignoring their own ability to make money. That works fine in the spring turn to do what was done to the Ottomans, but doing it to Spain here is kind of neglecting what they were hoping to do in general, which is set up a route here. That means they're going to maybe be in some difficulty. However, unless somebody can cause them to discard this, like, say, this guy. And that's one of the reasons you sometimes don't want to do something in a game, because, well, if I'm forced to discard the English power positions, the fact that I succeed in knocking Spain out of the game isn't going to help me one bit. What do I want to do? Do I really want to do this? Yeah, I think I'm going to hold off. I think instead I'm not going to move. I'm going to take a pass there. It's just a matter of if you end up winning, it's possible to end up losing from it. I can make myself such a target that this becomes the valuable thing. The problem is that Spain is such a target. But by passing, well, maybe somebody else will knock Spain out and become the target themselves. Otherwise, I don't know. It's just such a hard call, but at least I can set things up so maybe I can get some gold into my bank with a proper deal. I don't know. There's no such compulsion or niceties. He sails his galleys down. Now his plan is, well, look, here's the problem. Spain controls the Dardanelles. Maybe I can work out a deal with Spain, but let's see if I can sack Spain first. I think what we're seeing here is the failure of economics over military solutions, but the Pope himself is going in here. Now, if he wins, he becomes vulnerable to the English fleet to move in. It's possible all of these empires kind of fall into one hand. The problem with that is I'm not sure what happens if the papal C card gets transferred to the English. I think it's all the C cards, whereas the Pope might survive this. So here we have an attack, one galley, and I'm launching 2.5 essentially. That's the dice we're going to have here. The Pope has the advantage. If he wasn't present in the force, I wouldn't have the multiplier effect, so I might not retreat, or I might have to retreat, but that's not likely to happen. I get 2 hits, which is a success. I've taken the Spaniards out of the game, essentially. It's a 50-50 chance that he's captured. I believe he is under those conditions. So I can put him over on the Tower of London space for the Pope and hold him hostage. Maybe there's something I can get for that, but first we got our looting here, where we've got 17. So I'm going to get $8 out of that into the papal treasuries, because it is the Pope himself who's leading these forces, and that makes the Pope's money all the more valuable. Now the question here, though, I have grabbed the Council of Jurists. That is now vaguely under the Pope's control. I believe he also then has the Sultan's combination. And the fact that he has the Spaniards, well, then this all will become kind of one big empire if I allow that to happen. If I don't allow that to happen, if I instead somehow say free the Spaniards, maybe in exchange for supporting these ships, the trade route that I have planned, things become a little different. Problem is, with the Spanish leader in prison right now, we got to come to that deal real fast if it's going to happen, because otherwise he doesn't get to move his pieces. The Pope's not going to get to move them. What is most important to me? That's the question. What bribe is worthy of this? You move your pieces and, in what? You supply me for free. No question of that being an issue here. But what about more? What about more than that? Of course, the danger is if the English go in and take the papacy out, we're down to like one empire then. One empire is a real problem because this card can knock the guy who holds the English out of the English power base. And consolidating too much power into one empire is just too dangerous here, I think. I've never seen a game flow out this way. Usually everybody gets kind of a chance to build up their defenses, and this is kind of crazy. It takes me a while to kind of get a feel for the game, but this time I just went for the jugular right away. I'm afraid it's not my choice. Even if you just capture the leader, his empire's destroyed. So, there goes the House of Aragon, too. Where do we go? Where do you go from this mess? Pope could obviously make an offer to the English. Hey, we'll let you sail through and hook us all up. But where does that really help the English? What can the papacy give to the Portuguese player to prevent that attack? And the attack won't be complete. It would be to grab Rome and all that cash there for the English. But whatever fleet Venice and the Pope still control would be in the game and is fairly strong. So it's not the same kind of situation as if the Pope had remained in Rome. Alternatively, if I kill the Pope directly, that sounds like grounds for excommunication, no? Yeah, there's no reason I can't excommunicate, but I believe this guy has the ability to nullify that, so that's not going to do much. So look at the excommunication rules. What happens if I do it? One card of the Pope's choice. That cannot be an Emperor card, if I recall correctly. Any card can be chosen other than the cards the player starts with. Well, the player starts with those, so those couldn't be taken from him. So there's not a lot I could take from him with an excommunication, and it would cost 5 gold from the papacy himself. So that's not too big a threat. The big threat comes from this card. This card forcing the opponent to give up England. If England consolidates all the power, he would never be able to align with it. And it is the most powerful empire in the game. Of course, right now, that card is just begging to be played against the Pope. To open that up for huge bidding. And if there's huge bidding, money seems important. Well, right now we're down here looking at the former Ottoman player, the Basilius. He has nothing he can do. And then we go to the former Spanish player, who is this Florentine Prince of Athens, who basically has nothing he can do. Someone like him could be arrested pretty easily too. Venice cannot be easily arrested. There's a boat there. So let's work our way back up. He's got really nothing he could do. He could try to look for an inland place that he could move to and take command of. Without troops, I don't know if you could do that, though. The Basilica, not really available for anything. Milan, he's essentially got nothing there, but there's no one who can attack him. He'll sit back. That puts us to blue, who I believe is our Caliph. Basically has nothing. And could be captured. Well, what happens if we kill him as the English? Can we make that card go away? That's a question. He does not have a wife. C and M cards are destroyed if that happens. Sounds like a good plan to me. So I think we're going to run back to Cairo in order to avoid being killed, because that just sounds too dangerous. All right, and now we're back on the English, and well, they don't have an easy route to hit the Sultan. They don't have a way to affect him directly. And now it's a hard decision. You go after the Pope. You can take all the sea power, the chancellor power away from the Pope, but the Pope's still going to be a military force. So, is it better to come to some sort of agreement with the papacy? I don't know. You know, it's this sucky position in the sense of, all right, I can come to a deal with the papacy and we can both get money, but then he keeps this really mighty empire of 3 empires combined in terms of having enough money to maybe outbid this guy. If I get the bigger bid, if I get the more money out of the deal, then I'm in the position that if he plays this, I can buy the papacy. It also probably can't all be bought by a single player. Another factor to consider here, if it goes up for bid. So I think I'm going to try to come to a deal with the papacy player along the lines of, look, you know, I have $4, you have $4. I'm not going to attack you, and we'll transit the goods to our different banks. Mine's here. His is actually in Rome, if I'm not mistaken. No. Who the hell is he? Where's his bank? Shit. Oh, his bank's in Venice. Yeah. Which, as long as I get these connected, ends up being money that I can make. So if I can get the papacy to agree to pay me $1, the player pays me $1 for the exchange, I think that's the best I can do. And he certainly will do that to avoid losing his empire. Do I want to push that higher? I do. He will not go to $2. It's a hard situation because I don't want to be deprived of Lancaster. I don't want to be deprived of the English power base by taking everything on. And on the other hand, I don't want to leave the Pope in a powerful position. But the Pope thinks he's going to get screwed no matter what. He's not going to be able to bid on the papacy. So yeah, I think I'll go with the $1 deal. And the papal Spanish stuff allows me to sail up here. I'll go to that port, go here. I gotta send a ship here. My other forces. Is there something I want to attack? Yeah, but nothing that I'll be able to attack and keep this deal. Alright, so there we move. And we've set up our trade routes, and we go to the next card. Which could, of course, change everything. It's Genoese Explorer. If he's supplied with round ships, he can embark on a voyage of discovery, which will be using the Voyage of Discovery table, which I haven't really looked at. I should do that. You can lose a ship or up to 2 ships based on the dangers once you reach the maturity there. That's an interesting card. The English are definitely very intrigued by it. We'll see who bids on it. Yeah, the Portuguese English got it kind of for just 1 because honestly nobody else is in a position. Nobody else has any round ships. And doing that with less than 2 or 3 seems just kind of risky as hell. So, now we go to the trade routes, and the Habsburgs have made an offer. Hey, look, I'll give you guys each $1. You're going to need money. Weird shit's going down, and I really need money too. I have very little. Let's get this working. My mine is not going to produce money right now. I just want to make sure that income comes into my hands, and I'm willing to give the 2 people who are going to be making the big money this turn more to end up coming up in close range with other people who have piles of money, and they're good with that. So we've got the English, the papacy, and the Habsburg controlled players doing this. Looking to see, I don't think anyone else has anything they can deal in, really. So, you know, for example, the Byzantine Basilius, he does not have a route that gets him to the stuff he needs down here. The Florentine prince, his bank's over here. He could pay the 2 as well. And he may be very interested in that as well, just to get enough cash to be in the bidding for things. Yeah, he's also going to do it. So what we've got is 4 routes. All right, let's take a look at them. So we're going to be handing 4 coins to the Muscovite. He's, of course, very happy with all this cash coming in. That's an army, another army for him. That doesn't go to the player. The player who controls him is the Pope. That's going to give 4 cash over here, which will go to the English king. Four cash here into Ottoman hands, which transfers the money to this bank. All right, so that's going to be 3 money for the Athenian, 1 of which he gives to the English, 1 he takes, and 1 he hands to the Pope. Now we're down to only 3 money going into the Aegean. That'll go to the papacy here. Three more to the papacy in the Ionian Sea. Why three? Ah. Let's take care of the English ship next. The English are going to be giving $1 to the Spaniards, that's the papacy, in order to get $3 on their trade pile. The other two go directly to the Venetian player. He gets a bonus here. He pulls $3 into his hand for that, but he agreed to pay 1 to the English. And then we're traveling by land here. That creates $1 for Mantua. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Nope, because I don't have a land route through there. That creates $1 through Mantua, which goes to the papacy. And another $1 which goes directly to Milan for transiting here into his city. Out of the $3 that's created for that, $1 goes to the English, $1 goes to Venice, and $1 goes to the Habsburgs. So you can see that actually the deal was more important for him because he got $2 out of that, essentially, even though he gave $2 away. The deal over here was not as good, but you know, if people aren't going to agree to put a halt on the money that the winning players get, it doesn't make sense to hurt yourself too. This money goes over to the papacy. This money is going to go over to England. And I need to compact that money to get the stacks a little smaller. And then we'll be moving to the storms. All right, nothing bad happened from the storms. The card that comes up is an assassination, the Pazzi conspiracy. You can try to kill a player on a die roll of 1. And then if that player doesn't have an heir, they're just gone. But most players have at least 1 heir. This one has a couple. Alternatively, you can try to wipe out another person on a 1 through 3. And most importantly, this is counted as a person. That makes this card very interesting. It's a 50-50 chance of wiping out this Machiavelli card. That is tremendously interesting to a number of people, most specifically our Portuguese and Venetians, who have a possibility of aligning an empire to themselves that's very, very potent. We'll see where the bidding goes on that. Well, I lied. The Pope is buying it for 9, I think. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I spent 8 with the English for it, but I decided the Pope wants it more. And he owes essentially a total of $9 shifted into there. This is so important for him because it's a threat against this being used. And he has enough money under the papacy to build up an army sufficient to defend it. So his empire is secure now because it made it through this turn, as long as this card is here and this guy doesn't play the card anyway. If this guy plays his card anyway, we can try to assassinate him with it as it's happening, whatever. Order of play is not clear, but clearly if you kill someone, you can prevent. That makes more sense than a Reformation type issue. Anyway, just trying to, use some logic in this crazy world that we seem to have constructed here. But the, there's a 50-50 chance this goes off, even if the assassination is attempted, which will perhaps be a situation of, okay, well, what do you do for me if I don't play this card? Because I don't know why I shouldn't shake the world up at this point and try to destroy this humongous papal empire that stretches, through all of Italy into Spain and over into the Ottoman Empire. Something of a nature that I've never seen in this game before, but I've usually kind of been played more cautiously, not tried to wreck the world on the first turn, in the second year, as it were. And unless something can be offered, I don't see why he's not going to try to play it and take that chance on the 50-50, because it strikes me that Venice is going to run away with the game if he holds such a powerful empire in his hands. Anyway, we're down to the winter depletions, and I think the only thing we have to worry about is galleys. All galleys have to be paid for. Most of the galleys in the game are under the Pope's control right now. He's going to be paying a huge amount of money for them, but otherwise that's it for the turn. So this one will be going up. Important note, there was one non-papal navy, the Venetian boats. I had to pay out of my pocket. I had luckily the one coin left for that. The huge income that came in through all that trade, well, that paid for the card and then paid for my one remaining boat. All right. Well, definitely a different game of Lords of the Renaissance than I've seen before.